Hey everybody, welcome to Etc. Live. What's up, people? I'm your host, Kelly Barrett. Welcome to the show tonight. Good to have you all in the house on a Sunday night. I am beyond thrilled for my guest tonight. This has been a long anticipated interview for me. My guest tonight brought us some amazing 80s hits that became literally the soundtrack to a generation. Hits such as Pop Goes the World, Hey Men, Where Did the Boys Go? He was the guy that told us, it was okay to dance if we wanted to. And if our friends didn't want to, we could leave them behind. So it is my pleasure to welcome Ivan Doroschuk. Ivan, hi, welcome.
Hi, great.
So good to have you in the studio tonight, Ivan. I understand, before I forget, your birthday is coming up next week.
Next week, yeah, next Monday.
On the 9th. So happy birthday. I just wanted to say happy birthday in advance. And I got to tell you, I had the best birthday ever this year because I went to Rock the River. I was at Rock the River for my birthday. And I got to tell you, I had never seen your show before, and what a spectacular performance it was. Ivan, honestly, for me, it wasn't just about listening to 80s songs. It was like the epitome of an 80s experience. Good. With the quirky dance moves and the stage presence, and it was just amazing. And isn't it cool to see? This is one thing that I found interesting. Isn't it really cool to see different generations in the audience?
That's awesome. That's what I've been saying all along. We see our original fans with their kids and sometimes their grandkids. It's really, we're blessed.
Right. And, and I just got to tell you that, like, in my circle, and just with comments, because I posted a lot of footage from the show, and a lot of people were saying it was just absolutely the highlight of the weekend. And comments are coming in already. So Fabi Boucher, hi sweetheart, she's saying, hi Kelly, happy birthday, Ivan from Kelowna. So we got another BC girl crowd in the crowd tonight. And the thing that I loved most, Ivan, was at one point you said there's only one Canadian band, and then you did a hip song, and I just about died because Gord Downie is like one of two of my favorite artists on the entire planet, tied with David Bowie. And when you did the homage to the Tragically Hip, I was just absolutely blown away. And what attracts you? Obviously you're a huge fan of the hip, and I'm just curious. For me, I just think Gord Downie was a genius. He's a brilliant storyteller, poet, and I'm wondering, what is the Tragically Hip's appeal to you that you would choose to do that as a cover?
Well, I actually saw them on their first tour for their first album, and because of that song, I went to see them and went backstage and hung out with them a bit, and that's it. I just think Gord, he was a great guy, just all around nice guy, and so I've just been following them ever since, and we wanted to pay tribute to them. They are, in my mind, the Canadian band. They're the band that brings the whole country together, and it was just such a loss when he left us.
It was devastating. It really, really was. And I'm guessing you're a Bowie fan too. I was just mentioning Bowie. I have a feeling you're a Bowie fan too, and I don't know. I'm guessing you are too. I just have a feeling. I'm such a fan of like the flamboyant, theatrical sort of glam rock stuff, and but I understand.
Watched Moon Age Daydream yesterday, the movie, the bio David Bowie Moon Age Daydream film.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, I just saw it for the first time yesterday, and I was pretty blown away.
I got that for Christmas last year. Actually, I got the video for Christmas, and I just absolutely loved it. And and you actually cover Bowie's All the Young Dudes on your last.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah,
dance version.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, there's because you were busy during COVID because you cooped yourself up, and you put together Men Without Hats again, part 1, which was where you did covers with Bowie and Lou Reed and the Stones.
Yep, and even one of our own songs we covered, did a slower version of Safety Dance.
Right, and I'm wondering how do you narrow it down? Because I'm assuming those are some of your favorite bands, which is why you would cover them. How do you narrow it down to, how did you choose those 4 bands to cover?
It's just happened naturally. It happened organically. We've got a lot of covers still in the can, but those were the 4 that came out first, and they just reflected what we grew up listening to. You're right. It was my favorite bands, and I grew up listening to Bowie and the Rolling Stones and Lou Reed, and so that's it was just natural for us.
Right. And yeah, Lou Reed you covered on that album as well. So part two came out, I believe, in 2022, and part one was 2021, correct? And
Yeah,
I understand there's part three coming out.
there is. Yeah, it'll be out
And
next year.
tell us about that. Can you tell us about that?
It's just more new songs, a couple more covers, and just more Men Without Hats. You know, more of the same.
More of the same. Awesome. Well, I look forward to that. And I'm just curious, Ivan, as in this at this time, since when you first got started, I'm just curious, as you're writing, your approach to writing changed at all? Or like, what does the writing process look like for Men Without Hats?
I call it watershedding. I don't. Some people approach it as a craft and sit down every day and work, and I usually just let it go, and it all hits me at once. I'll have a week or two where I'll just sit down and write 15 songs all in a row, and it's how it's been happening. Yeah, ever since I've started recording, it's pretty much happened like that.
So are you an inspiration comes from the most unlikely of places sometimes. So are you the guy that will just get an idea and sit down and bang out a tune? Is that you?
Yeah, it usually starts. It usually starts with a lyric. It usually starts with a, like, Pop Goes the World, or Safety Dance, Safe to Dance, and it starts with the lyric, and then the tune comes after. But it's usually just something I'm thinking about, something that reflects what's going on, usually in around me in society. And I know we've just been fortunate because the stuff we were talking about in the 80s, people are still talking about it. Pop Goes the World was about Mother Earth, and if we don't pay enough attention to her, she's going to blow up. And it still seems to be front page news today. So we're lucky. We picked out some good ones.
Yeah, a few. And I understand the Safety Dance because you come from a punk background.
Kind of, yeah. It was a punk new wave. The thing back then is the punk new wave. There was one section in the record store, which was in the back corner, one bin that said punk new wave, and everything was everything that wasn't classic rock was stuck in there. And not only that, but we used to share the stage together. But the Men Without Hats started off as an all guitar band. There were no keyboards at the beginning. It was a punk band. We used to do rocks, contortions, covers, and stuff like that, and it just evolved into a electronic sort of. I've always thought that I was really influenced by 70s progressive rock too, keyboard bands like Genesis and Pink Floyd and Yes, and King Crimson, stuff like that. And I was also front and center in the disco movement. So I've always said that 80s new wave for me was a combination of those two influences. It was progressive rock keyboard synthesizer music with a dance beat, and that's kind of what I brought to the table.
Right, and Safety Dance was my understanding was written as kind of a protest against the banning of pogo dancing. Is that true?
It was. That's the origin story of Safety Dance. It was back in the dying days of disco and late 70s, and every now and then the DJ would slip in a Blondie's Heart of Glass or a B-52's Rock Lobster or
good stuff,
Satisfaction by Devo, and we'd get up and start jumping up and down, pogo dancing, we call it. And that was the precursor to the mosh pit and to slam dancing. Back then, nobody had ever seen it, and so a bunch of guys bouncing off each other's chests, jumping up and down, kind of looked like a fight for bouncers, and we'd get kicked out. And so after a few times of having been kicked out, I went home and did something about it.
Made a stand. That's awesome. And I pogoed. Did you all pogo out there in Viewerland? I know you all pogoed. You did. Pogoing was to me, that was punk wave. That was punk wave dancing, and I don't remember it ever being banned necessarily where I live, but I can certainly see where in Toronto, I don't know, or Quebec and Montreal. Some of the bigger cities, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, some of the bigger cities where it might have been more of a big deal. But you were actually born in Champaign, Illinois, in the U.S.
Yeah, and my father was at the university there doing getting his master's and his PhD. Right. And he got a job at the University of Montreal. I got a job teaching at the University of Montreal. So we all moved there. I was about 3 when we moved to Montreal. Grew up in French. It was great. I'm a
So,
real Canadian.
so you're bilingual, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And I wonder because I always thought that people, people that grew up in the Montreal or anywhere in Quebec, I always kind of felt like they were a step ahead of the rest of the country as far as progressive music. And like, would you agree with that? Do you think that your influences and style of music was maybe affected by just living in Montreal? That
Yeah,
it had
there's a
it.
couple of things. When I was growing up, bands like I said, bands like Genesis that I was into, they'd come to Montreal and they would play like the Montreal Forum in front of 15,000 people, and then go down to New York and play the Bottom Line in front of 500. So, and there was another thing, as in the '70s, in the late '70s, when we put the band together, there was a lot more experimentation going on in Montreal because everybody knew that there was no like record industry in Montreal. All the industry was in Toronto and in Vancouver. It was all in English Canada. And so it gave us the freedom to do whatever we wanted. We knew there was no, guy with a big cigar at the back of the room checking us out with a big wad of cash,
Right.
expecting us to be the next Spoons or the next Parachute Club you know, so it gave the bands in Montreal a lot more freedom. And plus the fact that I think in Canada, for musicians in Canada, it seemed at that time that going to Montreal and living in Montreal was kind of a necessary part of your CV. Like, so the English music scene in Montreal was really small. It was about the size of Hamilton's, music scene. It was the scene there is mostly French, but the English scene is really small, and it was comprised of people, from all across Canada, all people who just congregate to Montreal because of the, a lot because of the lax liquor laws and whatever. Late, bars would stay up, open till 3-4 in the morning, that type of thing. So it was just like people from all over Canada. It was kind of like New York. It was like New York is like that too. It's you have a hard time finding a native New Yorker when you go to. I lived in New York, and I think I met 2 people that actually were born and raised there, and everybody's from the rest of the U.S. They all congregate to New York and try and make it there. And Montreal was kind of that same. I call Montreal the Little Apple sometimes because it reminds me a lot of New York. And it was musicians from all across Canada coming there and meeting up. And so we got a lot of influences, a lot of people trying out new things. It was great. A great place to sort of grow up musically.
It's kind of like the New York of Canada almost.
It is. It was like that in the disco age too. It was a big, huge disco hub. And we used to there was a sort of a real New York Montreal connection with all the music. We used to get all the singles delivered. Dutchie's Record Cave was our place we'd go to in Montreal, and every Friday there would be the hot singles would be delivered from New York, and we'd all congregate there and go listen to the new songs before going out on Saturday night to dance to them. So it was a lot like New York.
Right. And so at that point, Ivan, when you're congregating in the bars and getting kicked out for pogoing and whatnot, do you know that this is your life's path at that point? Or did you know long before then?
Well, it was kind of, I was in McGill. I actually started off, I studied law for a year. Then I went to McGill. I entered the communications department at McGill the first year that it actually existed, film and communications department. And that's where I met a lot of musicians. There was a lot of people from there too, at McGill University. A lot of students from across the country, from the States, and everything like that. And that's where I met people. That's where the band was formed. It was formed. We picked up the name came to me in the pub at McGill, and at Gertrude's, and so yeah, I kind of slipped into it. I hadn't really planned on being a musician, but the whole DIY aspect of the punk new wave movement kind of gave us that possibility. And since I had been, my mother was a music teacher at McGill. She taught for 25 years in the voice department at the music faculty. So I had took piano lessons all my life. I had all the tools necessary to do it when the time came. And so that was it. But it was the DIY thing. It was you didn't really have to be that proficient on your instrument. You just had to, it was classic rock was kind of dying. Dinosaurs were kind of dying, anybody who wanted to make music, seemed like anybody who just wanted to pick up a guitar and form a band, you could do it. There was room for you then. It was good.
Right. Good time. Don't you miss the 80s? I pine for the 80s. I literally, Ivan, I pine for them. I just think it was such a magical era for music.
It was for a lot of other things too. Technology was changing a lot. Videos came in, the whole, in music too, there was a whole, computers were starting to come into to music, and sequencers and all this different technology coming into the music. But I think one thing about the 80s music is that there were songs, there were songs you could sing. There were it was very tuneful. It was, dance music. There was dance music, but there was a lot of melody. There was a lot of, and I always say, I don't know how many people are going to be singing Eminem songs around the campfire in 20 years. It's
Ivan, thank you. I say that all the time. I say that all the time on this show. I say, and I don't mean to be like sad panda girl, but I get kind of sad because I wonder, if the days where music being produced has the longevity that people are still wanting to listen to it 40 years down the road. I worry sometimes, Ivan, that those days are gone.
Yeah.
Like we had it, and like and I feel bad for the younger generations that might not ever know that. Just that magic of, songs that I listen to, and I don't have kids, but people my age listen to, and their kids listen to, and their grandkids listen to, and the longevity. And speaking of safety, we can't talk about success and longevity without talking about the safety dance. And what I wanted to ask you, Ivan, was when you wrote that song, did you have any idea whatsoever, like could you ever have imagined the huge success that song would become?
Well, I'll tell you, when you're a young songwriter, you think that everything you write is a massive, yeah. Just can't understand why everybody's not on board. Like, what's going on here?
Get with it, people.
So, but we're like I say, we're truly blessed. I mean, the fact, shows like, it sort of worked its way into popular culture, and we're lucky that shows like Glee, even that gave us a whole new generation of listeners. There's a whole kind of really gave the song a new life. But before that,
things and The Simpsons and Futurama and
Beavis and
God,
Butthead.
When you're on The Simpsons, you made it, my friend. South Park. I mean, that is just incredible. Like, I actually listed a bunch of the TV shows, and like I couldn't even list them all. I mean, it's like, and I mean, how amazing is that it's not just the music industry that took notice of you. It's film and television that that became
the video helped out too, because the video like is kind of timeless. It really gave the song a timeless quality, where there's a lot of videos that you watch from the 80s and you kind of chuckle. You can tell by the hairdos and the clothes that's an 80s video.
Right.
But the safety dance video is really timeless. It's like a Western, it's like you can't really pinpoint when it was made. It was the whole Pied Piper kind of thing, just you can't date it really. So that's one of the things I think that added to the longevity of the song.
And you're right, it is timeless. And I think the message behind the song is timeless too, because for me, what I get out of the song is, be yourself and do you, and kind of like, to hell with what anyone else thinks.
Exactly.
You want you, and if your friends don't want to, you can leave them all behind. I mean, just be you, do you. And I think that's a very powerful and very timeless message. And I think that would be my guess as to why this song, has enjoyed such huge success and longevity, and people wanted to hear it then, and they still want to hear it now. Would you say something along that line?
Definitely. It's, just don't succumb to peer pressure, like, and especially in this day and age too, with the social media and things like that, that's so hard on kids. It's a hard era to be growing up in, I think, just with everybody's fishing for likes and shares and everything like that. So it just tells you, just be yourself and just march to your own dance to your own drummer, and that's it.
Right. I thought the video was so bizarre when I first saw it. I thought this video is so cool. There's wenches and jesters and little people, and I thought it's kind of a mix between a really crazy acid trip and a really crazy dream all rolled into one, but it's memorable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You remember? And I'm guessing it was shot in Scotland or England.
It was shot in England. Yeah, it was shot in Wiltshire. And the funny thing about that video is that it was I was communicating with Tim Pope, the director. We'd never met, and it was, obviously pre-internet days, and so we wrote letters to each other, and we each wrote a letter saying what we thought the script should be, what the video should be about, and the letters crossed the pond at the same time, and we both got the same story. We both had the same idea, and almost the same locations. I mean, I had locations that picked out in Montreal that kind of looked like the ones we used in England too. So it was great when I finally met him. When we went over there and met him, it was like he was like an old friend. We really connected on a lot of levels. So it was a fun video to make.
Talk about synchronicity. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That you would have the same ideas, and is it true that you flew to the location and back on the Concorde?
I did. Yeah, that was another magic thing. That was pretty cool. We were on tour, so I had to get there and back without missing any dates. So that was how they figured out we should do it. So I was
and who were you to argue? Oh man. So I was just going to say, I was going to mention here, and also Pop Goes the World was kind of a nod to the whole green movement, as you said. And what was the vision behind that song as far as the lyrics go in relation to, the state of the globe, like the global state and the green movement?
Well, that's it. It was early 80s. It was there was an ecology movement there too. At that point too, things were, it was people were starting to have that on their mind. It was front page news, I don't know what it was called back then, global warming or global freezing, or I don't know what it was back then, but something was happening with the planet, and people were starting to worry about what was, about future generations and what was going to happen with future generations. And that was the one song, though, I must say that the funny thing about Pop Goes the World that I like to share is that I made a demo with 10 songs on it. And we had just been signed to Polygram or Mercury in New York. And so I had this demo of 10 songs that I had written. And there was one, I had just written this little instrumental, a 1 minute long instrumental. And the only words in it were Pop Goes the World, which I had my first wife sampled. We had, one of the first sampling machines, and we sampled her saying Pop Goes the World. And I would play it every 10, 15 seconds in the song. And it was supposed to be like a popcorn type of song, just a little instrumental. And so I sent that down to the A&R guy in New York at the record company. And he phoned me and he says, okay, well, those 10 songs, you can take them and you can throw them away. And that little instrumental, I want you to make a real song out of it. I want you to put lyrics to it, get a chorus, like the whole thing, stretch it out to 3 minutes, and then write, 10 more like that.
Right.
And so that was kind of like, I could have said like, no. And
or something much less nice.
Yeah. And but that was the one time where I actually listened to a record company and listened to the record company dude and did what he said, and so the rest is history. It was great. It was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten from a record company guy. But the thing was that his name was Derek Schulman, and he had been in a progressive rock band, English band that I used to listen to when I was growing up, a band called Gentle Giant, and he was the lead singer. And he also had two brothers in the band, so there was a lot more connecting with us than just an A&R artist relationship. He was
right.
He was cool.
Awesome. God, we're getting a ton of comments. I should probably take a minute, a little break in the conversation. First of all, to thank my show sponsors, Writers and Rockers Coffee Company. Have you heard of this, Ivan? It is a very cool concept. So it's Rockstar endorsed coffee blends, and I've got Todd Kearns. And this is his Damn It brew. I don't know if you can see it or not. And and they are my show sponsors, and I'm super grateful for them. And they just have a whole line of Rockstar endorsed coffee. I'm almost thinking we need a Safety Downs coffee blend. I think that would be a hell of an idea.
I like coffee. It's good.
I like coffee. Who doesn't like coffee? So we're getting a ton of comments, Ivan. So I'm just going to go to a few of the viewers here. Lynn Robeson, hi, sweetheart. She's just saying, hi, hey, guys. Scott Marks, hey, buddy. He's saying, hi, Kelly. I'm so glad that I have the time to tune into this show. Love Men Without Hats. Mitch Desborough says, "Hey guys, cheers from the crew in Deadwood Valley, Ottawa." Hi, Mitch.
Great.
Rod Cahoon. Hey, Rod. He's just saying this is awesome. Ed Schoaf. Hi, Ed. Ed's a good fan of the show. He's saying, "Howdy, Kelly and Ivan. We can still dance if we want to." Absolutely. Right on. So we'll get to, hi, Del Wilding. Hi, Kelly and Ivan. Dean Underhill. There's just tons of comments flying in, and I kind of figured that would happen. So, Ivan, I was going to ask you a question. I'd say it's more of a comment, really. So I think people primarily know you for your fun, quirky dance songs, like "Pop Goes the World" and the safety dance. But there's another side to you musically, which I really, really personally love, and I don't know if we get to see it too often anymore. But it's your ability to bring the energy levels down a few notches, and do a beautiful ballad. To slow things down, and when you play the piano, and the song that comes to mind is "I Sing Last," which I think is just an absolutely beautiful song. And and then also comes to mind is the beautiful piano intro to "And the Game," which is actually one of my favorite Men Without Hats songs. And I'm wondering, is that kind of out of the box for you to slow things down and do kind of a ballad?
It is a bit. It's I don't usually gear myself towards ballads. I'm always kind of gearing myself to the dance numbers. I don't know. When I go to see a shows, I like to feel it. I like to hit me in the chest, and so I just like to give people what I would like at a show, and I think ballads are good, but they're good.
Maybe not in a live show where people.
That's really it. In the comfort of your own home, like sitting back with your partner, having a glass of something, and
right.
But when you go to a show, you're out there because you want to move. I know that's the way I feel about it. That's just.
I agree 100%. And I don't even know if I would put even one slow song in, but I just had to make that comment because, I've been listening to a bunch of the music all week, and you are so good at that stuff is what I'm saying. So, it's just, you got the voice and the,
we do play one slow. We slow it down for a song off Pop Goes the World on Tuesday, which was one of the, it's one of the ones I like the best because of what we've done, because I got to meet one of my heroes. I got to meet Ian Anderson.
Wow.
From Jethro Tull, came in and laid some flute tracks down, and that was another learning experience for me, because I was really nervous because the flute part that I had written, when you listen to it quickly, it sounds the same, but there's actually like a lot of different parts. It's every time he plays, it's different. And I wasn't sure if he had really got it, or, and I didn't want to be the guy pushing the button saying, "No, sorry, Ian, that's not it," And he was the consummate professional. He just got everything right first take, every little subtlety he had figured out beforehand, and he was just a professional guy. He asked for a 6-pack of Grolsch beer and union wages and a Silver Shadow antique limo to drive him to and from the train station, and that was it. And we had a blast.
I bet. What a thrill, hey? And isn't it a thrill when you meet one of your, your idols or people that you look up to, and then they turn out to be like really cool people?
That's it. It was like, that's the case with when I put the band back together about 10 years ago, put us back on the road. One of the first tours we did was we went out with the Human League and B-52s, and I got to hang out with Phil Oakey from the singer from the Human League, and I'd always loved them. They're one of the reasons that I got into it. They
right.
a bit older than I am, and so I'd been listening to them before I'd formed the band, and I was really, sometimes you're nervous. You don't want them to turn out to be jerks, So, but he was such a sweetheart. He was just nicer than I thought that he could be. He was just the greatest. And I must say, a lot of them they're all like that. That's one of the great things about going back out now is I've got to meet a lot of bands that I listen to, like, Mike Score from the Flock of Seagulls. We do a lot of shows with him, and he's just a sweetheart also. And just there's no pressure now with the bands. I used to like him being in a band before in back in the 80s, it was kind of like being on a hockey team. You know, you're
It's very competitive.
very competitive. There's only so many places on the top 10. You know, there's only so
Right.
many clubs in every town. You know, and you're traveling around. It was like being on a sports team, and you know, but now the pressure's gone. Everybody's just out there to have fun. Nobody's doing this to pay the rent. Everybody's doing it because they love it, and they still can do it. And the smile on people's faces when we do it is just it's the fuel that drives us. It's awesome.
Right. And I think it was, you're right, Ivan. I think it was really different back in the 80s. And I really noticed that. I was on the road for 23 years back in the 80s. And I mean, I never obviously to any of the level of the guests that I have on the show. But the one thing I have really noticed and is you hit the nail on the head, because when you go backstage, which I often do to some of these events, the camaraderie between the bands, you know, and the well wishes and everybody just, you know, they're cheering each other on, and there's no competition, and everybody just wants you to have a great show. And you know, you got to love that. You know, like the Canadian music industry, you know, I have, you know, we were just talking about, you know, meeting your heroes, and then sometimes they turn out to be jerks. And you know, I've been doing this show for just about 3 years, and I can honestly say, I mean, I had the people that I have on are the people that I idolized, grew up listening to. And only once I ever met somebody that was, only once in 3 years, who shall remain nameless, what is I kind of let down and thinking, well, this guy's kind of a jerk. But everybody that's been on the show has just been so lovely
Yeah,
and gracious. And
it's great. It's just it is. There is a camaraderie. There is, everybody is just grooving on everybody else's set. You know, it's a lot of fun now.
right. And you know, Ivan, you were mentioning that you know, took a bit of a hiatus when you brought the band back. You actually took 10 years off to be a stay-at-home parent to your son.
I did, yeah.
And what a first of all, what a privilege, you know, to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and I'm wondering, what were some of the rewards and challenges? Like, you know, what did you learn from that experience? What did you glean from that experience?
Oh, so much. I mean, it was great. It was just, he's my best buddy still. He just turned 20, and he's just like my best friend, you know. And I mean, he didn't know who I was, and you know, I mean, he learned who I was from Crazy Frog. You know, I don't know how old he was. He was like 7 or 8, and he went to school one day, and all his friends came running up to him and said, "Your dad's the Crazy Frog." And
What's the Crazy Frog?
Crazy Frog is this little crazy frog that did videos like, you know, 10 years ago. It was a little animation thing that did little videos. I guess it was on Treehouse or on Nickelodeon or something like that. And so that's it. He had no idea who I was. And then he started, you know, I only put the band back together when he was, you know, old enough to go to school by himself. Right. But he's been on the road with us. You know, he roadied for us for one tour and everything like that. So it's just great. It was great.
That's beautiful. So has he followed in your footsteps musically at all?
No, not at all. Not at all. He's, I told him if he wants to get into the music industry, he's got to be a music lawyer.
Well, you know, that's good advice, Ivan, because it's got to be so tough today for bands starting out. You know, when, you know, back in
I often think that we're the end of we were the last of a dying breed. I think that rock and roll is kind of a dying art. You know, it's like, I don't see it happening in the same way as it used to. I think that a lot of people are captivated by fame instead of, you know, really wanting to, you know, just make good music. And so it's that instant fame thing that happens, you know, going viral and whatever. But there's, you know, people don't realize how much work there is that, you know, went into all this, and like kind of sacrifices a lot of people had to make to get where they are. And so to think that everything can come, you know, right away in this digital age is, I don't know, it's kind of tricky. I
have kind of I'll agree with you, Ivan. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with technology, because I think, you know, it speaks to what you just said. Anybody can pump out a song on YouTube, and maybe it's a good song, but they've lost that chance to get out on the road and make mistakes, and to suck sometimes, and to be amazing sometimes, and pay their dues, and do their time. And I think so.
When American Idol first came out, I used to make a joke saying, well, you know, American Idol, imagine if there was a show called American Surgeon. You know, people who wanted to be doctors but didn't want to go to didn't want to go to med school. They just wanted to
Right.
operate on somebody. And that's kind of how I view it. It's for people who want to be American Idols without putting in the elbow grease.
That's a great analogy. Oh my God. So actually, Mitch Desmero wants to know, who were some of your biggest influences?
Some of my biggest, Roxy Music was a big one. That was Brian Ferry was a big influence on my vocal styling and like I said before, Genesis, a lot of keyboard oriented progressive rock bands, Pink Floyd even, and out of the new wave era, like I said, Human League was a big influence on me early on, and the Sex Pistols were the ones who really got me to just I said, boy, if those guys can do it,
anybody can.
I'm going to give it a try. I'm definitely going to give it a try. But there's a lot of people, but those are the main ones. Brian Ferry especially. He was I really followed Roxy Music a lot. And Brian Eno,
yeah,
played on the first 2 Roxy Music records and ended up being, the biggest producer of, the biggest bands in the world. So that's what I listened to.
Great. Awesome stuff. Slave to Love is one of the most beautiful songs ever. I just love that. I love that Roxy Music song.
Mm.
Yeah, great question, Mitch. I was just curious, speaking of songs on the radio, and when you first heard Safety Dance for the first time, do you remember where you were the first time you heard it on the radio and what that felt like? No,
I don't remember. I do remember the first place I was when somebody recognized me from the video, though. We were on tour in the States, upper state New York somewhere, and we stopped the bus by a grocery store to go and get some groceries, and I was paying for my stuff at the cash, and all of a sudden the cashier looks at me and she starts screaming, pointing at me, "It's him, it's him, it's him." And the first thing I could think of was that she had mistaken me for somebody who had robbed the store or something like that. She was absolutely hysterical, and I thought, she's got me confused. And then another cashier came over and said, "What's wrong?" And she goes, "It's him, it's the guy from the video." And that's why I went, whoa.
Was it surreal slightly?
It was that I was, went from being completely, sort of unknown to being recognized everywhere I went. So it was a life-changing experience, definitely. And that's, back in those days, it was MTV. There were only about 10 videos out there. This thing was playing like every 10 minutes. So got a lot of exposure, and that helped. It gave the song quite a kick at the beginning. Right. And it blows my mind.
I was having lunch in a restaurant last week, and Pop Goes the World came on. And, and my friend was sort of, and I kind of went off on a tangent thinking about this show. And then all of a sudden she was like, "Kelly, what do you think?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Pop."
Yeah, it's a soccer chant now. The people are sending me videos of stadiums like singing it as a soccer chant in South America and Japan.
Insane.
It's quite the thing.
Quite the deal, hey? Rob Castro Giovanni, sorry, Rob, I hope I said that right, says, "I have the Crazy Frog video game for PS2, and that's how I heard of it." Well, there you go. Right on. Hi, Jason. Jason's a good buddy of mine, Jason Cran. Says, "Ivan, I was lucky enough to finally see you about 5 years ago in Saskatoon at Rock the River. You totally rocked it. Missed the festival this summer, unfortunately. Just wondering if you ever crossed paths with Alden Nova at all."
Oh yeah,
Montreal.
He almost produced a Men Without Hats record. I forget which one it was, but we were we connected and spent the day together at his studio, and he's a great guy. He's a beautiful guy.
Good stuff. And I love Alden Nova. They're touring around now too. I would imagine. They haven't come out this way yet, but. Melanie Davis says, your little super fan Willow says hi, Ivan.
Oh, hi Melanie. Yep, hi Willow. We'll see you soon. We'll be in your area early next year.
Nice. So you got some friends in the house. That's beautiful. Lynn Robeson is saying, "Ivan, you absolutely stole the show at Rock the River in Saskatoon."
Thank you. there was some stiff competition there too, because I mean, Carol Pope was there, and she sounded like
Amazing.
she hadn't aged a day. I mean, it was just, I was listening to her, and she just had her pipes are just still all there. Boy, it was great.
I know. Well, that was the thing. It was such like I love the lineup they chose, and I go every year to Rock the River because it falls on my birthday, and I mean, what a better way to spend your birthday. But this lineup was, it just was the epitome of the best of the '80s.
Yeah.
And I think truthfully, it was one of the best Rock the Rivers that I've been to.
And Gowan, I mean, what can you
Oh,
say?
oh,
He was
yeah.
he was awesome too. He came by and said hi, and it was just like he's such a great guy too. I've got some Gowan stories that will blow you away, but he's an amazing guy.
He sure is. Yeah, he was on the show actually, and then he played with Styx here a couple of weeks after, and he was so kind on the show, and he sent me tickets to the show, and then afterwards he got a hold of me. Did you enjoy the show? Were your seats okay, Kelly? I was like,
He's,
what? The
he's a
seats were,
really nice guy, just a nice human being.
lovely human being, lovely human being. What I got? This is maybe kind of a strange question to ask, but it's one of the ones that I kind of like to ask. What are you most proud of, personally and professionally? Like when you think back over everything, what really stands out as, a major highlight that you're super proud of?
I don't think there's really one thing. I just think I'm just super stoked that people are still listening to my music. I mean, that's kind of it. I'm a music fan myself, and I like to go and sort of digitally crate dig, on the internet, and go back and find bands that I might have missed back in, when I was growing up, and re-listen to stuff that I used to listen to. And there's just so many bands out there. There's just so many bands that have put their lives and their heart and their soul and all their money and family, everything into this, and have been completely forgotten. So for me to be remembered is something that it just blows my mind sometimes. I'm just so fortunate that, and that people, are still listening to my stuff. It's just, I feel so fortunate, and we have the greatest fans. I mean, I'm sure every band thinks that, but we definitely have a great set of fans, and they're the ones who are, every time somebody says safety dances, they're the ones who say, oh no, that's deeper than that. You got to go, the whole album is good, or, that they're just always preaching the word, So I'm just proud of that too. I'm just proud that we have such a great group of fans.
Absolutely. And I think proud probably that you raised what I'm assuming is a pretty good kid.
Yeah, my kid's pretty good. He's into D&D. He's really into Dungeons and Dragons now. So he's having a lot of fun, and I'm just glad that I'm glad that he's having a good time.
Oh, Ivan, your face just lit up. Your face just lit right up when you talk about him. The smile comes, and I can't see your eyes, but I'm sure and that's what a beautiful thing. And aside from performing, what makes you the happiest these days?
I moved to Vancouver Island about 20 years ago, and I just love this place. I'm really, really grateful to live here. So I just love being outside and swimming in the ocean. And, this is such a beautiful place to live.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I do. I mean, I love performing. I just can't wait to get back on stage. So I really, really enjoy performing for people. And but the rest of the time, I just love taking it easy and just sitting on the beach and having a good time.
Having a Mai Tai, chilling on the beach with a
Yeah.
beverage of some sort. That's the life. Oh, Ken Holst. Hi, Ken. So Ken was the promoter of Cornstalk, which is a huge festival that took place in Tabor with a bunch of great Canadian acts that will be coming back again in 2024. And he says, sorry to join late. I saw recent video footage from this summer, and you sound great. Thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
we have a great time doing it. I have my niece now in the band.
I was just going to mention your lineup. What an amazing lineup. So I'm sorry. Go ahead and tell us about Sarah.
Yeah, my niece, Sahara Sloan. She's took over from her dad. Colin just got named the head of the voice department at the conservatory and music conservatory here in Victoria. So he took a break from the band, and she took over. She's a classically trained soprano, and she's an amazing musician, and she's a great addition. We've got Sho Murray on guitar. He played in a band called Showcore, and that people might remember from Bone Cracker days. And Adrian White on drums, who's played with everybody like Frontline Assembly, just strapping young lads. I mean, we got a good group.
Great lineup.
Yeah.
Super lineup. Yeah, I was actually just going to get to that, and I really like. I was going to ask. One of my questions was, where did Colin go? But I think is it Sahara or
Sahara, like the desert.
Sahara. I think it's lovely to have a woman in the band. She's so talented, and I just think, I don't know. I think it makes it even seem more 80s to have a beautiful girl in the band. You know,
yeah, no, it's great. It's kind of weird for me. I used to carry her around on my back, like so. Pretty sure she's going to be carrying me. I don't know, but no, it's great. It's great having. I mean, there's always been family members in the band, so it's kind of just following the tradition.
Right, good stuff. I'm curious. Will there be a book? Because I think there needs to be a book.
A book.
Yeah, like a biography.
Yeah, no. We've been working on stuff for a while. I've actually been working on the book with a writer from Montreal. We've been off and on for a few years now, but I'm sure it's going to happen.
Good stuff. I think you want to have that legacy that that people can hold in their hands and read. I think there's a lot of interesting tales to be told, and yeah. And so, any idea when that might come out?
Oh, next few years, I'm sure it's going to happen. We've been, like I say, we've been working on it for a few years now. So
it's in the works.
It's in the works. Yeah.
It's in the works. And so, what's on the agenda for the rest of the year, Ivan?
Well, we've got our touring is finished now. We have a couple of shows in LA, San Francisco at the end of the year, but we're getting ready to start up again next year. We've got a big European tour coming next year. We've got a couple of 80s, kind of these 80s revival tours that we've been doing with a bunch of bands go out together, and we actually did a cruise. We did an 80s cruise a couple of years ago, which was really fun too. But we're just getting ready. We're just getting ready for more shows. We're recording. Like I said, we have a new record's going to come out next year, so we're going to be going into studio pretty soon and putting some tracks down.
Good stuff. So that'll be part 3, correct?
Yeah.
Right. It. Awesome. And I'm just curious, with next weekend being Thanksgiving, do you have any big plans?
Well, it's my birthday, so I'm going to be...
It'll be just a huge celebration.
We'll be doing both. With Thanksgiving, I'm just thankful that I'm still able to do this, and that's my main thanks.
Right. You know what I'm thankful for? I'm thankful we finally got to do this interview.
It's been a long time coming. Yeah.
It has been, and I just can't thank you enough for hanging out with us tonight. And you are delightful, Ivan. You're welcome back here anytime. And I just, on behalf of the fans, I wish you continued success, health, happiness, and all things amazing. I just thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you.
Thanks again. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in with Ivan and I. We'll see you next time with the Kings. Once again, huge shout out to my show sponsors, Writers and Rockers Coffee Company. Stay safe, be really nice to each other, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.